friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average babes come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A place where being yourself is the ultimate goal, where your opinion, your story, and your individual experience matters. Join me, your host B, and my guests for real and raw talks every week, laying it all out there so we can all help each other learn more, grow deeper, and evolve collectively. Now keep in mind, as a disclaimer, no one here is an expert and no one is giving any advice. This is strictly our opinions, thoughts, feelings, and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. I hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy. I am the host of the show, and today you guys were on episode 191, Being Real with an Anti-MLM Advocate. You guys, I'm so excited for my third Anti-MLM segment. You guys have been loving it. This has been highly requested, so of course I had to bring my resident expert back, Kalika, to join me to talk about more about Anti-MLM and what it's like to advocate and speak out against this cult-like industry. Now, before we get into this amazing, almost 2-hour episode, I just want to remind you guys, if you are listening on YouTube and Rumble, turn on those notification bells, follow, and comment for engagement if you have a second. If you are listening to the Apple Audio or Spotify, you can also follow me on there and turn on notifications. Leave your girl a review if you're feeling spicy. We know we appreciate it over here so much, you guys. I'm so excited. This season's been amazing already. Getting started, bringing in the heat right early on, right at the beginning here. And I just want to remind you, if you want to find me on social media, you can find me on TikTok at the Be Real Babe, Instagram at the Be Real Babe Podcast, and Facebook, the Be Real Collective. I am throwing stuff on Pinterest, but for the most part, I'm just over there for wedding content, if we're being honest. But you can find me on all of those platforms. And as always, guys, if you have a story, a show idea, anything, just let me know. Reach out to me, DM me, send me a message. I love to have y'all on, and we're just getting started. We've got 5 months left of the fall-winter season. So reminding, if you do have a story, want to talk to me, have a topic, let me know. Hopefully I'm looking at the camera better this time. I don't know. We will see. The first episode was a mess. I'm so sorry, but I do have this new layout. I am going to try. Obviously, I need a little bit more sparkle back here, so we're going to bring some sparkle, and I'll just update my up here. But we're trying hard in season 8 to bring you something new. So as always, guys, I appreciate your support, your love. Now I'm going to shut up, and we're going to get into this amazing episode with Kalika. All right, babes, it's time to get on to the show. And with me today, I have a very special guest joining me for her third time. I'd like to welcome Kalika back to the show. Hey, babe, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
So excited. Third time, best time. What up? So excited.
Me
Start
too.
my season. I'm like, I got to start my season with you because, well, for one, and now it's going to be a tradition to have you on every season. But also, it's been such a good summer. There's been a lot going on in this space. I just wanted to catch up with you. I know you had, very exciting conference from now and since we started. So I thought this is a perfect way to start my fall season. Get her in before the fall depression starts over here. But before we get started, just give a little recap for those that don't know. Kalika's been on the show twice now. Season 6 was episode 151, season 7 episode 181, and then today. So if you guys haven't heard, know who she is. Little recap of Kalika.
Hi, guys. Just to introduce myself, my name is Kalika. I am 34. I live in Colorado. And right now I just went back to school for clinical psychology, working towards that very, very slowly, but I'm excited. It's going well so far. I jumped back in a few months ago. So and then as far as MLMs go, I have been speaking out against MLMs and creating some content, consumer awareness content around this space since a little over a year ago when I was really publicly starting to create content. But I was in an MLM for about 7 years. From 2015 to about 2022 is when I completely got out. And was a
Did you ring a
process.
bell?
I mean,
Did you ring a bell?
yeah.
Sorry, bell.
I mean, I just realized like when my anniversaries come up, I'm like, wow, this is a big deal, because it's a process to get out, and it does a number on you. At least it did a number on me. And so that's definitely why I wanted to start talking about it online.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a good point that you say too, like think about how many years you were in it. It's going to take probably that plus years to repattern some thought processes and all that kind of stuff. And I think one of the biggest ones maybe for yourself was, when you got into it and they talk about like how education is awful and all those kind of things. And I feel like that's probably something that you battled with because you left, right? Going from education, you went into this and then now back into it. Is that something that you felt like you had to repattern in your thought process from being in MLM so long is going back to school?
Yeah, in there's a lot of rhetoric about, the traditional path isn't the best way, and the way they talk about that is going to school, getting a degree, and then working in corporate America for 40 years. Like that's basically what they are saying. Hey, there's a better way, and so a lot of the rhetoric is around why some of those things aren't so great. I'm
Mm-hmm.
really glad I actually finished, because I did see this when I was in doing my bachelor's. I'm really glad I saw it through, even though I joined the MLM and I did graduate. I'm grateful for that, because a lot of my peers in the group didn't. They dropped out of school for this, which it just really sucks. And I know school's not for everybody, and I'm not saying
Totally.
that it is, but um, it was kind of realizing like I always knew myself before as a student and someone
Mm-hmm.
who loved to learn.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is just like school, just spend 4 years here instead of 4 years there. That's kind of what they present it as. um, and they kind of devalue your education. And I worked
Yeah.
really hard to get into my college, and it was a
Totally.
really good school. And so it was kind of weird to be like, well, that's not that important, so it was interesting. But now that I'm actually back in and starting to take classes, it actually came back
Really
fairly
nice.
quickly to me, which is kind of a sign that I knew that this was the right direction for me from the beginning. The person who I was before the MLM, who loved school, is
Yeah.
really who I am, and that kind of was
Yes.
able to come back.
Yeah, and it's so sad to like have that demonized, right? It's like it's one thing to say, you know what, education isn't for everyone because it's not. And owning your own business isn't for everyone because it's not. Like I do feel like that, we all it's not everything is for everybody and that's okay. I don't know why that became so polarizing, why it became so, offensive. It's just like some things aren't meant for people. Like some people aren't meant to learn in school sitting down reading a book. Some people are meant to learn with their hands, like there's all different modalities. And just to one thing of what I dislike about MLM models is they very much demonize the corporate world, the like you said, regular education. And like, okay, maybe for some things like design, maybe there's a certain amount that you learn and it's really about your artistic expression, you go out there. But like, I'm sorry, I want the doctors and surgeons that could be amputating maybe my leg one day to have maybe gone to school to learn, you know what I mean? Like there's got to be a balance. And it's just so sad to me that it gets that corporate and education gets so polarized when, like you said, it is some people's their life and dream, and you helping people. I think the way you're doing it is perfect because it's like you sandwich breaded it in, and in the middle you got a lot of experience within like people that were going through stuff psychologically and got to see it. And I think that gives you like this other fire of empathy and passion to go back into the school, later in life and really like take it by the balls and like kill it.
Mm-hmm.
That was graphic.
And this is kind of but no, it's true, because this whole thing was a big piece of that motivation. Like I studied cognitive science before joining the MLM, so I was always kind of always fascinated by the brain, mental health, that kind of thing. But um even just being back in school just for a couple of months, I've already been able to see how my experience has informed um, how I'm learning and how I really understand some of these concepts. It's one of the reasons I decided that I wanted to do this, is because I don't feel like there's enough support from people recovering from being in a cult or being in an MLM. And it's really cool, because even my therapist is like, you could do your dissertation on MLM cults. And I'm like, yes, like
Oh my
this is the
God.
energy that I need, you know?
Yes. Combining like both worlds, right? And being able to
Mhm.
not only be like, hey, this is my experience. I lived and breathed this. I seen people around me. I advocate for it now. Now I'm actually going to go look at the science, the education, which also sparks another part, which opens up so many pathways, I'm sure, in your brain to all these different thoughts. And it just bounces back between your advocacy and then the education you're obtaining from that. And I think that's when education is the best, when you have that passion for it and you're just like have a thirst for it. I think people that go to school and they're just checking the box and they don't know what they're passionate about, like, no shade, but I feel like that's where, people don't end up where they should be, where it's like you've gone
Right.
out and you know where your heart is, you know where you want to help people. And yes, I agree. Like, even the conversations being had sometimes is hard to have with people that are currently in MLMs, right? So bringing it back to your advocacy. So as you mentioned, it's been almost over a year. I was a nerd and noted, I think your first post was June 3rd, 2023, when you spoke out. And that's when we started connecting even more, because like what we've mentioned on the show, it was like no shade to you, but I was like, I don't want to be, I don't want to not support you, but I don't want to support you here, but like, I love you. And so it was just really neat for me to see this trajectory of you going from speaking out to everything that you've done now. So congratulations on the over 1 year, and thank you for doing that. So let's talk about, like, how long was it for when you quit the MLM till you started advocating, and what was your like moment? Did you have a moment of like, I gotta say shit now, like this is it?
Yeah, yeah. And it was longer than I thought. Like I said, that leaving process is, you don't realize months go by, you know? And so I think when I first saw anti-MLM content and like a light bulb clicked was around this time, August of 2022. So about 2 years ago, where I saw someone else who I knew was in making anti-MLM content and I respected her. So before writing her off as a hater, I was like, hold on, I got to listen to what she's saying. And
Yes.
she's making a lot of sense. And I'm like, oh my goodness, a lot of things started clicking for me. Um, and I just binged like I think for like 3 months straight. I consumed as much anti-MLM content. Like all these YouTube creators, like I went back and watched everything. I started reading books, all these things. Um, so I thought I quit right away, but when I actually went back and looked at the dates, it still took me 2 months from them to actually send the
Yeah.
email and get out. So I didn't get out until October of 2022.
Okay, fair.
And yeah, my YouTube video was June 3rd of the following year. In between I had started creating like a few like more incognito posts like on my story and things like that. Like I started saying some things, but I
Updates.
didn't just outright, come out and say it. And it's nerve-wracking. It was a process, but
Oh.
I basically ended up reaching out to somebody who was also like a whistleblower and was also creating content. I'm like, my brain is so jumbled. I need to talk through all of this with somebody. And it
Totally.
helped, but I realized I still had so much more I needed to say. And that's where I'm like, I need to create content about this because I can't just like, if I ramble to my boyfriend, he's just going to go crazy. So
Yeah,
I'm like, let me
sometimes a
just
diary is not enough, right? You're like, dear diary, okay, this isn't enough. This is just for me. And two, like, you're a person that wants to help, right? So I think we all get to a point when we've been like shaded by something, hurt by something, that we're then ready to take that pain into helping to make sure that people have informed consent when they're getting signed up for these things, right? So they're not like sitting in a moment that, the gaslighting moment that you guys see all the time, where they're love bombing and saying all of these things where you don't want to leave that sisterhood and you're alone and all of that, all those things you want girlies to know, like, hey, there's also a group on this side too. Don't worry, you're not going to be alone if you speak out or step away, and you shouldn't lose the people if you're stepping away. Like, that's where I think I got hurt the most, was losing all these friends that I had made, that I thought I made genuine connections, and then I stopped selling or buying, and it's all of a sudden you're trash and you're like, oh, I was just like a car salesman feel, and that doesn't feel good. And that's where the bad rep, I think, gets from. So, like, yeah, kudos for you for seeing that and now flipping it over and being like, okay, I can, and it's the way you tell your stories and how you're very kind. And we've talked about this before, how you deliver any of the criticism, you're going for the behavior, the models, the businesses, not the individuals themselves. And I think that makes your story hit so much more. So, yeah, so first video, was like, were you like shitting your pants? Probably. I know
It
I
was
was.
so scary. No, it was so scary. I mean, even before that, like when I had started putting a few things on my story, I already had like uplines and people, because people watch. And the
Oh
second
yeah.
that, you know, what you're saying goes against the narrative, and it's kind of, for me, it's an integrity thing too, because like I thought I was building a business with integrity and authenticity, and that's the hardest pill to swallow. Is, everyone's like, well, it's my own business, or I'm an independent contractor, I do it ethically. And it's like, the problem is with the structure is unethical. So no matter how good of a person you are within the structure, you're still hurting people, you're still preying on people. And
Mhm.
when you think that you're doing it ethically, it's a huge pill to swallow, especially when you put yourself out on social media like that. And so I think part of it too was like swallowing your pride and being like, I made a mistake, and that part is really scary. But I saw so much support. And even you, Brandy, like that was one of the biggest surprising things to me, was how welcoming and understanding people on the outside really are when you are honest and say, oh crap, I made a mistake. Like,
Yes.
shit, I'm sorry I pitched you. Like,
Yeah.
people are actually really understanding, but when you're inside, they tell you people are going to be so hateful that you're scared. You're honestly scared to leave. So there's that fear. And then there's also the fear of like, what are the people that were in with me going to think, and how are they going to react? Because it is a cult and they do come after you.
Yes.
um,
Very much
so yeah,
so. Yes. It's
I
and
was
so
I
many
was so
things.
scared.
Yeah, and too, like you said, they're very good at building your identity around what you're selling, right? So it's like, especially some of these, we've talked about this before, that have multi different services that they do. It's like, oh, wellness and health and beauty and all these things. And it's like, when you use all their products for makeup and their protein and all this, and it's like your identity is within this, you know, business. And like, I get where they're coming from, and we'll talk about this more too. Is like it's your own business, and like I think what you're misunderstanding is you get to build your own schedule and decide. It's a little bit different than your own business. Because that's really what you're choosing and how hard you're working. And it's like, when your whole identity is in that and then it gets taken away, what are you then left with? I've been running this around in my head lately. Like, if social media was gone, which we all know that's happened to me several times this year, who are you in real life, and what matters
Mhm.
more? Because the internet could go down tomorrow. You could have your account hacked. You could be shut down for speaking the truth. I mean, both of us know what that's like, right? It's really like, but who am I being outside? And when your whole life is this persona selling this thing with this sisterhood, and that gets taken away, it's more than just the people, the money, the whatever. It's everything, because it's ingrained itself in every part of your life. Sorry, just like cults do. That's, people don't understand it. And it's like, but that's what it is. It takes hold of your life, and everything else dissenting is a hater, right? And it's just like, criticism's still valid. I think murder should be criticized. Doesn't mean that I'm a hater, because I don't think people should murder. I don't know. You know?
And I mean, and like, something about social media too is like,
Mm.
like, people don't know how to vet information, or like parse information. And so it's just so interesting, because you can just get wrapped up in something so quickly, and you don't even realize that like the people or the influencers that you're following, or your leaders in your company, are literally just bending the truth and just taking you down a path.
Yeah, yeah, because even though sometimes their mission sounds good, most cults start with good missions, right? Like, let's live off the land, let's everybody be happy, no government telling us what to do. Sure, that sounds lovely.
Right.
But there's chaos always, right? And so it's like it's being sold a dream. And I think that's what's so important about you guys advocating, of being like, okay, you know what? Yeah, some people do make it and some people are happy. And you've said this before. I do take credit to the things that I learned there. You can learn a lot of amazing things, meet a lot of people. However, back to the point, the model and all of that is scamming people. So it's so important, I think, especially when you're leaving, to speak out. And even though that is so terrifying, but I imagine you found a lot of people, like you said, to support. So you got a couple videos. I'm sure some people were replying to stories being like, yes, and then you probably got some more fuel to the fire, and then some people started reaching out. And then your first video, how was that received? Because I imagine you have a lot of people at that time still in a lot of other MLMs, because y'all go become friends with each other. How was that received?
It was so nerve-wracking. My first video was like 10 reasons, I think it's called 10 reasons network marketing sucks or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So
good title.
like, and I thought that out very clearly too. I'm like, I'm not saying that there aren't good things, but here are 10 reasons that it sucks. Like,
Yeah.
and of course you get the people that just tell me that I'm wrong or that I failed or whatever, but I wanted to kind of like come out and be like, these are my 10 big reasons why, kind of just like a meta, like a comprehensive like view of everything. And yeah, I mean, that video did get sent around to a few people. A few people had already reached out that were in my same company and were like, good job, like thank you for saying that, you said what I was thinking. But it's a little nerve-wracking. It's one of those things where people are like talking about you, but they're not
Yeah.
talking to you, but
Yeah.
that they're talking about you.
100%. Yes.
So
Yes.
it was like one of those things. And that video, honestly, probably just because it was my first video or whatever, but it got a lot more views than any of my other ones. Like, it kind of went pretty wide. I got a bunch of views, and so I did right away get some people I didn't know seeing it and commenting and angry, all the
Yep.
things. So I kind of
Yep.
just got thrown into the gauntlet.
Right away.
It felt really good though.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of gave me a little bit of courage, because I did after that I did make a couple videos. Like, I made one specific video about Secret Direct, which was the company that my company got rolled into. Which now rebranded because it had gotten too much bad press. Imagine that.
Oh, weird.
And about Ray Higdon, who was a coach that I worked with. So I made two specific videos about where I was naming people and companies and stuff like that. And you always run a risk when you do
Of
things
course.
like that, a little
Totally.
bit higher of a risk. So that was
Yeah.
a little bit more nerve-wracking too. But I do think both of those things I needed to say. The channel is dedicated for me to get out all of these things to process, but also obviously to say the things out loud that other people haven't been able to say, and kind of create a community around that, and that was when I was still really angry, and now I focus more again on consumer awareness and not talking specifics so much, but more like practices and applications and behaviors, so people can recognize it. It doesn't really matter who the people or the company are, but
And that's crazy too, because when you listen to people and you line up their experiences, it's very true. It's everyone is different, and then they go to another one, and then they rebuild, and then it's like, oh, I'm being so successful in this one, without realizing, well, yeah, because it's like you guys keep jumping to new ones, and the CEOs keep going over here and making new ones because we have to rebrand because that one got called out, and it's just kind of insane. And I never feel like, I don't know why they think anti-MLM is like haters and they want to see you lose. It's like, no, we don't. That's the exact opposite, because, it's not about failing as a person. It's like it's designed to be that way. And it's just really sad when you see how much money and time and relationships that get broken up because of this, and how much people are afraid to talk to their spouses about it, or because they're told, tell you right in there. I've watched them be like, well, just don't tell your spouse, just spend the money on the credit card. And in my heart, I'm like, this is the absolute worst advice I've ever heard in my life. Please don't lie to your spouse about things like this. Like, if, like, it's one thing, I understand that we think that people don't support us, but your spouse is supposed to be the person you're running your life with. So it's worth a conversation at least, right? And it's like, okay, these women that you just met, although I'm sure they're making you feel really good at the time, and you think that they're really close because they're saying they love you and all the things that you miss hearing, you know, doesn't mean that they know what's better for you than your spouse, or what's better for your finances. I don't know. That's one thing that bothers me, is when it's like, hide it from your spouse, or, your family doesn't support you, then they don't care about you. And it's like, that is not what anti-MLM, because I know women like you're the ones that actually got like burned and changed their whole minds and perceptions of the world. That's what you're speaking out against, not like, oh, I don't want you to make money. What? No.
right. Right. And it's tough because, again, legislation isn't on our side. And so they can always play that gray area card that, like, oh, well, it's legal. But like, it's just really hard. I don't know. It's just hard.
Yeah, legal, ethical. I mean, like, it's like, okay, cool. But like, how do it's like, I hate the word. It's like, you're not supporting a young mom. It's like, it's not that I'm not supporting you. If you were made that candle by yourself for that, whatever, skirt, dress, clothes, whatever, that's on you. But this is going to a big company and a big corporation, and those two different things, right? And it's like that they get you with that manipulation of not supporting, and that's so sad to me.
Yeah, it's super sad, and it's these are all like cult tactics, about how to like get people in, lure people in. It's always under a good pretense. You always think you're joining a good thing, and the people that are advising you are good people. It's just they're wrapped up in like, hey, lie to your spouse, or just spend the money, don't tell anybody, and that's not necessarily the healthiest thing. And even with any decision making, like it's hard to make decisions and be rational. We all know we can get caught up in our emotions, but I think we all know that anytime you're making a decision like that, you should look at the positives and the negatives of things. And the fact that they say they try to discredit the negative side, like the pros and the cons, right? Like you want to look at both. We're just pointing out cons, and trying to discredit the cons just kind of discredits the whole thing, because you should be able to look at any idea and be able to point out, hey, these are good things, these are the bad things, right? Like that's just we're looking at buying a house. We have to go through that same process. It's like, of course, we're going to get excited and our emotions are all wrapped up in it. But no, you got to look at both sides. Or same thing with going back to school. What program am I going to pick? Of course, I'm emotionally charged, but like that's how you make any decision. So then when you come across a business decision and they're urging you not to do your due diligence, that's a big red flag.
Totally, absolutely. And I think that's what people always say, like by doing your research is by like not just looking at the echo chambers, not just looking at the one side of things, not just looking at the good. And that's one thing I see a lot is these individuals aren't letting the bad or listening to the bad at all come out. And all they're doing is like, oh, but it's good. And there's this one girl that I follow that's been speaking out about like zeolites and all this kind of stuff. And the reps won't even acknowledge the bad negative side effects. They're just like, oh, that's not true. That's just a hater. That's just someone that doesn't believe, is into pharma. And then they start attacking the individual and start bringing up old tweets or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, let's go back to the product, because I think in all things we can say that everything comes with risk. So you're sitting here saying your stuff doesn't come with risks, whether that's financial, spiritual, mental, physical, like those are red flags to me when people won't look at the bad side. And especially to your point of, don't go read that. That's just haters, right? And I think we've talked about this before. When you're in them, if you bring it up, it's just be like, don't listen to that. They're just haters. Like it's just, but it's like some of them is constructive criticism. Not everything is haters. It's constructive, and people's experiences aren't haters. They're sharing an experience. So, but you like experiences when it's positive, but when it's negative, they don't exist, and that's a red flag to me.
Yeah, and like it comes from the company, right? They tell you, hey, there's haters online that create content about this. Don't go looking at it. Don't waste your time. Like, because they may be bold enough even to say that because it's going to affect your belief in this. And they don't want it to affect your belief because that's the only thing keeping you really roped in. If you were looking at it objectively and really being like, how much money am I spending every month? And how much time am I spending? And how much am I making? You'd get out a lot quicker. But then if they've got you roped in by your belief, whatever that is, you stay in a lot longer. And so even like back in 2015, I don't think the anti-MLM movement is what it is now. No. It's much bigger now.
Yes.
But even then they would be like, hey, anyone can post on Google, or every company has bad reviews. And so just don't waste your time going to look at them, to the point where I think my college roommate even sent me a lawsuit that my company was going through. And I couldn't even digest it, like, because they just teach you to block it all out. Yeah, it's wild.
Especially with lawsuits. That one's always hard because it's like, yes, technically anybody could sue anybody. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, okay, I get that excuse. But when you start seeing pile up, let's say with like Monet, with like hair problems. And I think this is the biggest thing that I struggle with when women say, well, it's a small business. And it's like, listen up here though, or your small business, if you were getting sued by said client because her hair was falling out, you would be in litigation with that person directly. But guess what? You're not. It's the company itself and its entire entity. So when you look at stuff like that, it's like when you're, like you said before, when you support the MLM, that money is going to, those places where it does fund all these corporate jobs that they claim to hate so much that run the company. But again, it's like, that's how the biggest way to know that you're not in charge of that company, because if someone was to sue, it would be you directly. And but so then you're comfortable, no offense people in Monet, but you're comfortable with putting money into a company that is silencing women just like yourselves, who were doing nothing but trying to sell a product, had a bad reaction, and then are being silenced by litigation like that they can't afford. So they're not going to win, they're going to be out money from being a part of it, and they've got lost their hair. Like, this is on Google, it's a quick Google search to see how many people are suing Monet. It's not like, but then you still have people that are throwing it up, it's the best thing ever, and it's like, can you put like an asterisk, like, but maybe not for everybody. And if you start seeing signs of your hair falling out, like, don't like think that that's just part of the process, like stop using it, you know what I mean? Like, and I respect women more, or anybody that sells, I just say people in general, salespeople that will acknowledge that it's not perfect for everyone. If you see the signs of this, please stop immediately and consult your doctor or whatever. But that is one thing I never see with MLM salespeople, is any of those disclaimers of being like, it worked for me, but it might not work for thee. It's like, oh no, work for me, it's gonna work for everybody. Here's a miracle. And that's what pisses me off.
Yeah, because the main thing is making the sale. It's the main thing is keeping that person in. And like you were saying with, a company that's using its legal powers to silence others, they're actually okay with it. Even if that was your sister that was in, when you guys were in, you guys were sisters, um, the way they teach you how these things go down, it's like, no, that person became a hater. They lost faith. They da 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 da, and they're out to shut down our opportunity. So they do make it like that person's on the other side, because in a sense they're right. Like, if the anti-MLM movement is successful enough, people will stop joining, and it does threaten the company. It really does. But I think that's where it's like, they're okay silencing people on the other side. Even one of my posts, like one of the girls that was like a sideline to me, she wasn't on my team, but we were under the same person. So I have pictures with her. We went to a lot of events together, we did all these things. And when I posted about my Instagram being targeted on my Facebook, she left a comment and said, I believe in freedom of speech, and I don't think that this is right, but you're being a dream stealer. And it's like, and then she went on a huge rant about how I was wrong. And so, like, that's it's a perfect example. Even if you're tight, even if you're both good people, you want the best for each other, and when you get on the other side of like the argument of, is this good for people or not, people get really defensive.
And like, let's just show how like how delicate some people are. Like, if my opinion of something hinders your dream, I feel like that might be a personal problem, not mine. I mean that in the kindest way, but like, who the fuck do you think I am? Because I don't think I'm anybody special enough for my opinion, with the knowledge I have in front of me, that should dictate your entire existence. Just a thought. Crazy, I know. Maybe that's a hot take, but I'm sorry. Like, if everybody that had a dream that was a little bit crazy, like really cared about other people's opinions, we wouldn't have any advancements in the world. We wouldn't have art. We wouldn't have dialogue. We wouldn't have politics. We wouldn't have everything. So it's a very interesting take when it's a dream stealer, because my opinion of something shouldn't stop your opportunity. Like, what is it physically? Like, does like a what are those things called, like a vision pop up of yourself, like, you can't do this, like, how exactly am I blocking your dream here? I'd like to
This
know.
And I haven't ever heard that term outside of MLM, but that was something they would say inside,
Mm,
is
yes.
haters and dream stealers. Like that,
Mm.
that's the other word that they used. It's like, I don't hear people say that outside of, because I don't think you're giving other people too much power. If
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm visualizing Harry Potter, where they like suck the like soul out of you. Like, is that how it happens? Like, I just curious. I didn't realize I was so powerful. I need to make sure I'm using my power for good here. So it's just, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're that triggered, if you're that stopped by someone's opinion about your dream, I think that's a trigger to look inside. And is that really your dream then? Because y'all, doing this podcast, doing the YouTube, speaking out, we have those. It's imposter syndrome. We have, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, there's going to be opinions about you all the time. You just have to learn to let it go. If it's something you're truly passionate about, it shouldn't rock your entire world like that. Like,
right, right. Well, see, and the other thing I want to point out about that is, she's not even in still. So this is why I advocate, because if you don't heal and process all the weird, incorrect things that they instill in your mind, like someone having a criticism means that they're stealing your dream. Like if you really if that's what you've learned inside and that's how you apply it to your life outside, that's really not something that I would carry forward. But that's my point. She hasn't been in. And I know we're going to get to the point of talking about the companies that just took their MLM model away, but
because I've been waiting.
I had a similar experience, not for the same reason, but our company just shut their doors one day, right? So it left people all trying to scramble and figure out what to do. And a lot of people got out at that time, even me personally, I still kind of let myself get grandfathered over and kind of tried to dabble, but I was never in the way that I was in the first time. So when that company went under, a lot of people are just trying to make sense of what happened and figure it out. And this girl didn't join another one. She isn't still in one. And this is now 4 years later, and you're still commenting like that on my post. That's really concerning, because I mean, that is the brainwashing, that is the stuff. Because in her comment, she's like, just look at all these amazing leaders that we have, and starts listing off all of our uplines. I'm like, she isn't really going here right now. And she's like, you should have a debate with them. And I'm like,
rather not.
It's frustrating, because 4 years later, our company's gone. They took the money and ran. Everyone got screwed over. And now that I'm speaking out, and then I get silenced, or somebody tried to take my Instagram down, you're going to call me a dream stealer for pointing out the truth about all this, and you're not even in. So just imagine if she was in another company.
How aggressive
it's just
she would
crazy
be.
how this stuff stays with you, even when you're not in.
Yes. And I think it's such a good point. If you don't go back and heal, regardless if you're still doing the activity or the behavior or whatever, that narrative, that story in your brain never got a chance to be rewritten. So you're always going to be defending based on what you know, because you haven't faced it and thought, well, you know what, maybe that wasn't the best idea. Or what are the signs that I missed that got me so that I'm not manipulated in the future? Because like you said, they're holding on to, but what dream to the past dream? Don't get mad at me that didn't work out for you. And that's so funny, because that's usually what they say to you guys. It's well, you failed. Well, yeah, who is successful? How is that? Everyone fails with this shit. It's meant to do that, unless you're right into a new one. And like you said, it's people either have that realization when they crumble, okay, this isn't it, this isn't for me, I'm going to go back and do whatever, or they just hop to another one, especially a new one, and it's oh, look at this new one, best comp plan I've ever seen in my life, all of these things, and I'm just sitting here going, okay, but 3 months ago you just said this one. You start to also discredit yourself when you're doing those kind of things too. And I think deep down you must know that and not feel aligned is kind of where I feel like people are. And so instead of looking in and saying, this is triggering me because I'm not aligned with my purpose and maybe I'm not doing something I love, instead it's I'm just going to project on you, it's your fault for speaking out. And it's okay, but it's my experience, so you get to discredit mine, but I don't get to comment on yours. Okay, right, cool. Just trying to learn.
Yeah, and there's always going to be this cognitive dissonance going on, and I'm speaking generally because every company pulls this on their reps. They make changes without telling people. I don't care what company you're in, it'll happen at some point. And because it's not your own business, right? And so as a rep, when you have tied your belief to, this is the path I'm going to follow, I'm going to make it work for me, you will come up with increasingly delusional narratives to explain to yourself why the things that are happening are happening. And that's, I mean, it's like doubling down. Instead of a lot of people get out when that happens. A lot of people at those times are like, wait, what did they just pull on us? I'm not falling for that again. And I love that, but a lot of people double down and come up with increasingly wild stories. People will still say that our CEO was just the best man and the best visionary. I'm like, he ran the company into the ground, took the money and ran. What are you talking about? But
I mean, he made his money. He was good at getting his bag, but I think that's about it, kids.
Yeah,
but sure, if that's what you want to respect, if that's what you want to respect, so you have to always wonder too, when people are looking up to that, it sometimes makes me sad that that is what some people look up to. And you're like, you're looking up to a con artist that is just using like a lot of the things. I'll go back, and I think I said this in last episode, a lot of stuff within MLMs to me reminds me a lot of like Scientology, a lot, because it's like all these different levels of education, and the higher you go, the better you'll be, the more enlightened you are, because you're doing all this self-improvement. And and then it's always trying to like make the people above you like care about you and like put you up and post about you. And it's like everybody within the comments are within their own MLM, so then people are seeing, look at all this love. And then it's like, but the minute you step a toe outside of there, it's like they even have a special word for them. I don't even remember what it is with Scientology, but like it's the same thing. It's like you step out, you speak
Oh
out,
yeah, SP or something. I forget what
something
it
like,
is.
yeah, you're just like, you're the enemy now, right? And it's so sad because it's true, and it happened to me 3 fucking times. And when I wasn't aware enough, I would listen to the things that people would say that were disagreeing with anti-MLM, like, I did fail, I am a failure, I'm not a hard worker, I didn't put it all in, and I was like, I'm not good on social media. And I really started taking that stuff in and really started feeling shitty about myself. And then I fell into the anti-MLM YouTube rabbit hole just when I moved to Kelowna. Actually, I was working on the weekends by myself in a grow facility with just weed plants. They don't talk back to me. So I was like, I need something to listen to. And I stumbled across Anti-MLM, and holy fuck, did I feel validated so much. And I was like, I'm not an idiot. I didn't like, I was tricked into this. Like, I was manipulated. And I felt so much better that now I'm just like on the same page as you. It's like, whatever, I have friends that do it. I try to stay out of my lane, try not to say stuff. It's your choice. You figure it out, because we all figured it out at our own time, and it's not my place to tell people what to do. But I will go against some arguments, especially when it's coming at women in corporate. Like, I was talking to my girlfriend the other day about this, about how much corporations and real businesses support single mothers too. Like, it's always hated on that they can't do whatever, but like, I don't, my company, your kid's sick, you get to work from home. Like, they do support. There's people for adopted parents, there's time off that you could take. Like, corporations get such bad flack, but they do help provide money for single parents and single families. And that's one thing I hate, is I wouldn't go around and be like, join my corporation, your MLM sucks. Like, you shouldn't have to hate on other people to get people to come to your business. That was kind of a
And there's
circle.
so many different kinds of jobs out there. Like,
Mm,
you can't just say all jobs are awful. You can't just say you're going to hate. And I'm in the position where, of course, I don't want to, I personally would love to not go back and work for someone else. Would
absolutely.
love that.
Totally.
Will I probably have to do that at some point? Yes. Am I working towards a kind of a career and a setup where I don't have to do that long term? Also, yes.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many different kinds of, I don't know, so many different kinds of jobs. Even me, for the longest time, being in mental health, it doesn't pay. So I've always been bartending. And it's not a career, and I learned that, when my wrist and my forearm stopped working last year. I'm like, I'm not going to have physical problems from bartending. But like, even that, like, especially in the MLM, it was like, jobs are talked down, but those are okay because they're like non-committal almost,
Mm,
but like,
yes.
also, you don't want to stay in the service industry forever. At least I didn't.
Mm-mm.
And even my restaurant jobs had my back so well, like, even when my
Absolutely.
dad passed, or even when I was in school and working 2 other jobs, like, they accommodated me when I needed to be accommodated. And so, I don't know, I just think you can't make blanket statements like that, and it all comes
Yes.
back down to trying to make the opportunity seem like the best thing there is out there.
And that's again what it comes down to. It's like, cool, couldn't you just talk about the things that are positive, the things that you like, the positive stuff about your products and what they're doing, which they do. But a lot of it is hate, and then putting some like shame on women that have to work a 9 to 5 or whatever. And it's just like, but you're not living your real life. It's like, girly, have you ever done that job though? Like, because listen, we've talked about this before. I work in cannabis. That is something I've been advocating since I was like 14 years old. Like, this is a dream for me. I have an analytical brain. I love working with numbers. So my job is to balance inventory every month. Every job I've had led up to this job, and I'm super happy. I'm not going to have some fucking person on social media that's selling a powder tell me that I'm actually not happy in my corporation. How could I be? Because women should be at home doing all these things. Well, sweetheart, like, great, maybe one day I'll adopt it. Like, no, like stop using these hateful things to recruit people to your cult. Like that's the part, and quit saying it's your own business. Let's get into that too, because like you just mentioned, and the big reason why I wanted to talk is because I'm not sure how many MLMs have done this, but this is the first time I've been aware of it since I've been like a part of understanding anti-MLM, is them ditching the MLM models. So we had what, Saint and Rodan and Fields, I believe, recently. I don't know if they've done it right now, but they announced that they were doing it like in the fall, I think it was. So are they the first companies to do that you know
I don't think that there's the first. I think there's one-off instances of like this happening. Like I think the Body Shop.
I think that used to be an
I th-
MLM back in the day.
yeah, so like I think in different countries it's different. They have in-store locations, but they also have an MLM side. So I know like the Body Shop I've also heard of. Oh, I just had it in my head. Ooh, I don't remember. I've one-off heard like when a company is like, okay, in this market we're dropping this, or we're going back to a retail or whatever. But the amount of companies that are like Rodan and Fields and Saint are two bigger makeup MLMs, and then also Herbal Alchemy also just announced this too. I hadn't really heard of that one. It had a different, because they're always changing names, right, to avoid litigation. So it was called, I think, MIG before, but they just also announced that they were dropping the MLM model. I think this is new. Again, like we were saying before, anti-MLM is a lot louder than it has been in the previous years, and I don't really see that changing. I do feel like that's going to just be amplified. But that's the beautiful thing about social media. That's the beautiful thing about giving the public a voice, is because if legislation is not doing it, if consumer protection agencies are not doing it, people can go online and share their stories. And if they're getting enough visibility, because there are some pretty big anti-MLM creators now, there have been some documentaries come out. And so I do think that has an impact. Honestly, I have seen like new companies, like we were following. I think these are the people that took down our pages, but the company doesn't exist anymore. So I will say their name on here, Transact Card. But they literally, I don't know if you heard about that one. It was like kind of new early this year. They were blowing up. And then within a couple of months, they just changed the name and branding on everybody and changed the name to Finmore or something. And then they put out a press release saying, because of the negative press that Transact Card and the anti-MLM, like literally they said that. So I think that has a lot to do with it, because MLM is getting a bad rap. So a couple things to point out about this. MLMs have always, since the beginning of their inception back in the early 1900s, been calling themselves things other than MLMs so that they don't get flagged as pyramid schemes, because MLMs are legal pyramid schemes. And so when that information becomes common knowledge, they try to call themselves something else. That's how the term network marketing came about too, but now network marketing has the same kind of stigma. So then they try to use things like, even though they fall under direct sales, still a different thing. Direct sales is different. So is social marketing, digital marketing, referral marketing, all these things that they're calling themselves, social selling. They'll use these terms and they'll use whatever's hot at the time, right? So since social media has been out, they've been using social marketing and digital marketing. Affiliate marketing is another one that they have kind of been using. So a lot of times you'll get the MLM companies that are like, no, we're not MLM, we do affiliate. But if you look at their comp plan, they're MLM, right? So they're just calling themselves something different. And for those of you listening that don't know, affiliate's super simple. You get a unique link, you give it out, people use your link to purchase, you get a small commission, 5 or 10%. MLM is like presented as way more lucrative because the big bonus checks come from recruiting a large downline. That's the predatory part, but that's the allure, right? Like affiliate companies aren't saying, come be an affiliate marketer and make 7 figures. They're not telling you that. MLMs will tell you that because they're trying to suck you in. These companies I'm really trying to understand it, because they made a point to say, we're going to stop doing MLM and switch to affiliate, which is different than just saying, oh, we're not MLM, we're affiliate, right? Like they made an announcement.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't make sense to me because their top leaders is who it's going to affect the most.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
People at the bottom, they're probably not making money anyways. They're probably selling a little bit of product and making a little bit of commission, which they can do as an affiliate. It's not going to affect them so much as it's going to affect the people at the top who are getting these bonus checks from their large downlines. Now, if your downline is gone, that's why those people are so upset, because now they have to sell product if they want to really make money, and they're still not going to make as much as they were with their bonus checks. But by announcing this, all your top leaders who are veterans are going to go to another MLM. But then if you look at their comp plan, like Saint, for example, I've looked at this, and I'm going to plug Roberta Blevins too. I don't know if you know who she is, but
I don't think I've watched her yet.
Roberta is, she's probably the OG like activist when it comes to this space. She was in the Lula Rich documentary on Prime about LuLaRoe. Yep. She was also in the state of Washington's case against LuLaRoe. She's an active participant. She was the one who coordinated our activism piece for the MLM conference. So she's like an OG. She has an amazing podcast, Life After MLM, hundreds of episodes. I binged it when I first got out. Anyways, she, on her Instagram, she just broke down, she did a reel like 6 minutes long, breaking down Saint's new comp plan and their FAQs. They still have a pay to play requirement. You still have to sign up to be an affiliate. So they just changed the terms a little bit. There's still like a quota, like you still have, I think it was like you have to sell $500 within 6 months. So I'm like, okay, they still have ranks, but they call them something different. They still have bonus pools. But they just kind of got rid of some of like the making money off people below you. Like you still can, but like
not
as much.
Yeah.
And like some of those bonus pool requirements are like $30K of makeup a month. Like who's selling $30K of makeup a month by themselves without a team? Nobody. Right? Like
that's almost unattainable.
You still, so there's workarounds for some people to still work it, I guess. It still looks like an MLM. They're just calling it affiliate. I haven't looked at Rodan and Field, so I don't know if they did the same thing or whatever. But it just seems like a bad business decision because all your top leaders probably just left.
Yep.
Because you announced you weren't doing this. And then you just made the comp plan harder. Yeah.
And I feel like what I'm trying to think is kind of funny is like all these people that got upset. No offense, I understand you get upset about it, but I think it's to the point of like, yeah, you don't own the business. They could go and change the models at whatever time that they want. They can make it more difficult for you. So what happens, and I don't know if Saint is one of the ones that offer a vehicle. I have no fucking idea, but we know a lot of them do. So what happens then if you're now stuck into this luxury vehicle, which y'all, I have a luxury vehicle. They are not cheap. Now you've plugged into this and now it's even harder. And you have all these people that are probably left that are below you that aren't making very much money, but enough to make it worth it. They're all going to leave. Therefore, you're not going to make as much money. Like, and now you've got a luxury car that you have to pay for because you're not going to hit those levels that you need to hit in order to make that money to pay for that luxury car. And this is why people speak out about these kind of things and say, be careful because it's not a real business, because these things could happen. Now, listen, I work for a corporation. They decided a couple weeks ago to lay off 100 plus people within our whole entire country, like throughout all of Canada. I have no control of that. But I'm aware of that. I'm aware that I do not have the rights, and I work for a corporation. I work really hard, and I hope that I stick around. But I don't have this grandeur idea of like, this is it. I'm the only thing, like, and this is where I think women that are in it need to just be aware because they can turn around and do this. And all these women were upset, and it's like, excuse me, why are you upset? You still get to sell makeup and make money, which is what I thought you wanted to do. And
right.
I thought,
wasn't that the whole point?
Yeah, I thought that's why you weren't a pyramid scheme, because you weren't making money off of the backs of other people. You were just selling makeup, which is what you're doing. And you can still continue to do because you're still able to make the money off of it. So what are you actually upset about? Just be real about it is all I'm saying. Because you made money off the peoples. Just say it. Just say it out loud with your full chest. Just say it.
And it's, it breeds this competitive atmosphere. There's a little bit of a scarcity mindset around it, because then it's like, okay, well, I got to, like, they will spin this and spin it into their next company. Like, oh, Rodan and Fields just pulled the rug out from underneath me. but I just found but I just found Amare. I just found the olive tree people, and oh my gosh, their comp plan is so amazing, and their comp plan will really help me see all my team win, and then they'll start talking about how in their previous company their whole team wasn't winning. I was making the money, but my team wasn't. Spoiler, like that's how they all work, but that's the same lines that they'll use to just jump to a new company. And you said the grandeur and the idea of like it's your own business. It's like that's been coming from the company. They always tell you you're running your own business. And just think about like a freelance graphic designer or photographer or somebody like that. That's kind of like that's the closest equation that I can draw. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you work for yourself, and yeah, you set your own schedule, but you're contracted to fulfill a job, right? Like, so you're contracted with this company to sell their product, and so you have a little bit more autonomy than an employee. But at the end of the day, yes, they can still pull the rug out from underneath you. But like we spoke about before, like you brand your own team, you call it your own team, and if your company screws you over, cool, you just take your team somewhere else, and then you're just jumping into a new company.
Yes, and I think my other biggest beef is like the ones that just jump and they're like, "This is the best products ever," and it's like, especially with if they're within the same brand, let's say like something like Avon, no, not Avon, Arbonne, let's say it has a pre-workout and like juice to make you happy and your gut access brain, but then you're pissed off with them, so then you jump to Amare and now you have happy juice, and now this is the thing that's curing your thing. And I think we've talked about this too, is like people making these big ass medical claims on something that they even haven't tried for 4 to 6 weeks. And like, sorry, there's no such thing as a miracle drug. There's no such miracle cure. I really wish there was, but we don't come to this earth to just live in just have a like powdered juice and everything is better from your childhood trauma. I'm sorry. I think that's so disingenuous. And I think it's just like we've talked about this before, like having a past friend telling her how I was targeted being infertile. And then, she's jumped back in and all of a sudden it's like, oh, my friend got pregnant because they took this powder. How the fuck do you know that? How do you just claim that? And then you have vulnerable women, not as me anymore, but a couple years ago would have been like, okay, maybe I'll just take this juice and it'll help my fertility. And then it doesn't work. And then now it's like, oh, well, it must be your fault because, this juice did work for, like, it's fucking predatory. And it upsets me when we have these medical claims to this stuff, when people just literally take their whole team and jump. And it's like, oh, so all of you now are just like so happy under this happy juice. But well, then what was the happy that you had at Arbonne 2 months ago? Like, I can't follow this logic.
Yeah. And
Lost.
I've seen some anti-MLM content creators cover some serial network marketers that are literally in a new company every 3 months. And I'm like, who is following you? Like, who is believing all of this? I was only in one company seriously. And that was a serious concern of mine, trying to switch and sell something else. I'm like, how do I just go from this to this and have it be authentic? Because I'm already like, sure, I'll try the product, see if I like them. And they were good enough, but it still felt disingenuous for me. Or like even when our company went under, grandfathered over into secret, and then our upline decided to jump to Modere, right? And so then suddenly on my feed, there's about 50 people with their little spoonful of chocolate pudding. And I'm like, really? You guys all just fell in love with this chocolate pudding in the same week? Like it's so,
Yes.
it seems so fake. It's so constructed.
Yeah. Yeah. And sales. And it's fine if you're just selling it, then talk about it. But it's always, again, selling this lifestyle. And I think it's the sisterhood that gets me the most, because it's just like, okay, so what if all of your line just decides to jump because they're pissed and then they're no longer friends with you? And that is truly how it works. It's like your sisterhood until you're not in the same MLN, and until you start questioning the narratives, until you start saying, hey, this doesn't line up, or you start speaking out. And I've seen that. And a lot of people will comment like in the comment section of anti-MLMs, well, it's helped a lot of people. Has it though? Because you only know what they're putting on their social media for the most part. So how do you know, like, because some people are even lying to themselves and being like, yeah, I make this much money. Okay, gambler, how much did you put in? Right? There's no difference than someone that's like, oh, I went to the casino and I won 5,000, but doesn't tell you that they spent 10,000 to get there. To me, motherfucker, sounds like you're out 5 grand. That's how the math works for me. I don't know, but I don't think you guys are taught that, right? And it's like, if you have a true business, you are doing the checks and balances to be able to see that. And this is another way that it's not a real business, is because I don't think Betty has her fucking Excel up there in and out and in and out. It's just like, I buy these products, I get a discount, and then I sell them. I must be in the positive. Well, we've come to find, listen to most people that get out of them will tell you, nay, 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 I have all this product now and I can't sell it because we're oversaturated, but here's 50 essential oils that I use, all of them.
Yeah. Well, and like we were talking about before, like learning how to like parse information and understand and misinformation on social media is a big thing that wellness influencers I are on my shit list right now, just because people can say basically whatever to sell whatever they're selling, and people will eat up what you're saying if you have enough followers,
Yeah.
But there's the placebo effect is a very real thing. You can't discount the effect of being motivated to make a sale and being motivated to see something work and the effects that you feel from it, right? Like if you're saying you're starting over a new journey and you're turning over a new leaf and you start all these new healthy habits, and then you also add in this product, like, are you being really truthful about what's causing the changes that you're feeling, things like that? You're lying to yourself a little bit. You totally are, just, and that's okay. But like,
Okay.
and again, being back in school is really reinforce this in my mind. Like, anecdotal evidence, like, you can't use that as proof of anything. It's great that you had that experience. I'm not discounting anecdotal evidence, but I'm saying you can't use that to make a claim, especially when it comes to health and finances for other people. And that's the bread and butter of MLMs, is those stories, those success stories. There's not a ton of actual, evidence. And then in their pitches, in their promotional materials, I'll definitely say like, oh yeah, we have clinical studies, because they've paid some doctor to be on their board, right?
Yes.
But like, understanding peer-reviewed double-blind studies, things like that, and then understanding that even when a paper gets published, one paper does not prove anything. You have to look at maybe 100, and if they're all coming to the same conclusion, then maybe you can start to say that, hey, there's a causation here. Like, and none of these companies are doing that kind of research, but most people themselves don't know that that's what it takes. When they hear someone say clinical study, and they're claiming they're a good person, they're claiming, they're of the same religion as you, and they want to help people and this and that, virtue signaling, you just believe them.
Oh, absolutely. And you want to, because you want that easy answer. We all want that easy answer. We want to be like, oh, hey, I built this bad habit of eating junk food for 25 years, but I just want to be able to take this black sludge that actually tastes like shit, but I'm going to pretend it tastes good and just going to wipe everything away. And that's the issue. It's like, no, you took all those years to learn that habit. You need to take all those years to unlearn that habit and do those things. But we're in such a microwave generation that everyone wants something now without understanding the risks or the long-term effects of things. And it's just like, sorry, basics are going to be what's going to get you back to where you need to be. It's not going to be this magic pill. And I'm all about supplements, and I'm all about, doing the things that you need to, but ethically, at what point? Like, are you looking at the stuff where it's being sourced? That's where things, and the people that created it, like, we go back to, what is it, Young Living, like the guy that created Young Living, like, that is a whole rabbit hole in itself. And I'm not saying, that means his essential oils aren't great, but at the same time, you're just like, oh, that guy was kind of crazy. I don't know if I want to kind of support stuff like that. And like, if he wasn't ethical in his personal life, then how do we know he built this on ethics to begin with? And it's like, but you just get so caught up in the all of it, because it would be so much easier if we could just take a pill, if we could just have a juice that would heal our childhood trauma. Oh my God, I would love that. I would love it if I could just take a pre-workout and all of a sudden, I wouldn't have recollections of all the bad things that happened to me as a child. I really wish it was that easy, but at the same time, it's never going to be. And it upsets me that people hold on to those things, use those buzzwords, use people's triggers to sell products, and then kind of turn around and blame them after, of like, they're the reason why, because anecdotally X, Y, and Z told me that they feel better because of this. And like, people lie too. People lie, I'm sure, about the results all the time, just to get popular or to feel like they're a part of something. Like, it's so, this is why I like when people share stuff, just to share it, just because they love it. And maybe they get a 5-10% link. Like, that's what I don't mind affiliate marketing. It's like, yeah, I love this product and I'm going to get 5-10%. But it's when they don't tell you and they claim that it cures fertility. Like, who, I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, there's places out there, but are they holding them accountable? I don't think so.
Yeah. And it doesn't just apply to, I mean, it's all marketing, right?
All
And I've
marketing.
spent long enough in sales to know, and I like, but even when I'm watching commercials, I'll be like, really, that commercial literally just said nothing. You know what I mean? I'll just, and it's just all marketing. But I think, I don't know. I think commercials, people know that it's marketing. And I think when you're talking directly to another person, talking to one of your friends, and they're in a desperate position. And that's the thing, man. It's when people are really searching for answers, really searching for a change, that they're more willing to believe these things. And they just get taken advantage of. And when I feel like it's just way more predatory. Like, I know when I see something on TV that it's like fake, you know what I mean? But I think when it's like somebody coming to you and being like, no, this is for real, and making all these promises, and here's evidence, and whether that evidence is real or not, they're in your face, like saying this to you directly. I think it's way more compelling, and you think people operate with more integrity sometimes than they do, and oftentimes they don't even know. They're just doing what they're told,
Yes. And you feel like it's a real connection. When it's a commercial, it's like, this is playing for everybody, and whoever resonates, it's going to hit. But when someone's in your DMs, or they've put up a poll asking questions, what are you struggling with? And immediately it's like, oh, you're struggling with health? Well, I can sell you this pill or this program. It's like, you're thinking in that moment, because we're very new to this part of the generations. TV commercials, movies, all of that, we have mentally been able to understand, okay, growing up, that was MTV, that was Playboy, understanding, like, we still got body dysmorphia from it, but I don't think it's going to be to the levels that these children now are seeing with social media, having filters on people's faces 24/7. It's everyday people doing it to you versus the actors that are paid and sold in commercials. So I think it took us years to understand that that wasn't real. I think it's going to take us a lot more time when it's everyday people, right? Like, we were looking at models, we knew they were photoshopped, they were professional done photos. Now it's every second bitch on Instagram is being photoshopped like she's in Playboy Mansion. No offense, I get it, whatever, I'm an artist too. At the same time, what is that doing to the psyche, right? So when it comes to this, I think we're just not used to it. And of course, we joke about hun bots and all that, we know it now, but 5 to 10 years ago, I thought all those girls were real when they wanted to make connections with me. And I thought they did look at my Instagram and thought that I was awesome, because I am. I have a great energy. What are you talking about? Of course, right? Like, especially being in the fitness industry, and then Beachbody being like, oh, I want to, and then it was like, oh, I want to share your journey as part of being a part of Beachbody. I'm like, okay, so in the 10 years I've done fitness, I did Beachbody exercises at home with what's her fucking name? Like the original blonde lady. Shalene, yes. I still have like the cards, and like I had the recipe book, and I had the little containers. And yes, did that start me off of my fitness? Absolutely. It gave me confidence to go to the gym. But I didn't get my gym success from being in Beachbody over the last 10 years. So what the fuck do you mean? And that's when I started becoming very suspicious of those conversations. And I got myself looped into 3 different ones. We've talked about that before. And it was like, oh, well, you're just not trying hard enough. And I just accepted it. And I was like, you're right. I'm not going to be good at any of those things. And then I went to the Go Team Academy where I met you. And that's where I started to learn, okay, well, maybe I'm not bad at this stuff. And maybe it wasn't. And then I fell into the anti-MLM. I'm like, okay, it wasn't me. But yeah, like, I think it's taken us a long time to understand that everyday people can fool you like this now. It's not just paid actors,
Yeah. And I've already noticed the tide turning a little bit. Like, social media was really good for network marketers when it was brand new because of this exactly, right? Like, you could go live and sell stuff, and hundreds of people would go on, and like LuLaRoe was big for that. But I think it's already changing. People already can have because they're getting pitched so often, and then add in the bots and AI and all that. They're getting so many spam messages and direct messages. It's kind of like your cell phone now, right? You just don't answer numbers that you don't recognize.
Or have your ringer turn on anymore. We used to pay like $2 for all the songs, and now that thing makes a noise. I'm like, shut the fuck up. What are you doing? Like,
exactly.
But totally
we're in that generation that like paid for ringtones.
Yes, exactly. And to your point too, like, I think the pandemic pushed a lot of things that weren't online sales to, like fitness coaching and all those, like lifestyle coaching, like all those things definitely existed, but they didn't blow up like they did after the pandemic. So like you said, as soon as you jump on, someone's selling you across the board, where 5-10 years ago, it was really just the network marketers that were using it, the MLM people, to branch their connections, understanding that that was a way to connect to people. But now it's like, someone's in my DMs, I'm like, unless I know you or met you, or we're talking like if you're selling me something, we're done. Like immediately I'm like, okay, done. No, thank you. Where before I'd be like right in conversing with them and telling them all. And I'm like not realizing they're picking out reasons of, how to sell to me and how to, and now I'm like, I ain't saying shit about fuck. I'll come to you if I want something, period.
And the sad thing is, like, some of those strategies that I learned they were pretty good if you were applying them for an actual business. Um, but now every network marketer knows them. So now they've lost their uniqueness, but like some of the things that we learned were, look for people, in groups that are related to your niche or whatever, and try to connect with people and try to post things with value in the groups if you can offer value or offer insight and free content, and just, put yourself out there and the right people will find you. And I don't think that there's something inherently wrong with any of those things. But then if you're telling every network marketer to go on their Facebook and add 10 new people every single day and send them a message, soon enough
the copy and paste catches up to you. You forget to change the name and you're like, wait, my name is not Susan, what the fuck? And it has happened, right? And so it's like, yeah, it's not the same ways. They have to definitely be. And that's where it's like, why can't we just do affiliate marketing? You like something and you want to sell it. I am not against that. You want to be a part of it because you've marketed it and you earn a commission from someone seeing that you did that. I totally get that, but just be honest. And I feel like not just with MLM and individuals, influencers, like beauty influencers, like everyone used to listen to influencers like back in the YouTube days. They'd go on, they watch, all these people like, but now you've got TikTok where you've got like the Michaela Nagueras of the world that, are having all these ads, but not disclosing it, and like, but you would never see like that. Like as much as I hate like James Charles sometimes and some of those like past beauty guru people, they were very much like, oh, this is branding with like, like Jeffree Star would always be like, this is, they would be very, apparent, it'd be very obvious who they're working with. And now I just think it's so skeezy that they can just hide stuff, and like the FTC, sure, it's there, but it doesn't do anything from far. I can see they're not calling these influencers out that have massive platforms. And I will say it's not just MLM huns that are doing this shit. Like it is anybody that is a part of marketing does take advantage of this. And I just think it's gross and sad. The problem with MLMs is that structure then builds you into this like beehive of like intensity, where it's like if it's just like an influencer influencing one person, that's a little bit different, but you get locked into this like sisterhood that gets, I think, can be very toxic. Because especially being a person that loves being around people, I used to be scared of speaking my mind because I didn't want people to leave me and not be my friend and be alone, and that was very sad. And during the pandemic it was really hard, so I get why people don't want to speak out. That being said, like if you're not feeling well and you feel like you're being bullied or you feel like this isn't right, like speak out and talk to people. Like you said, so many anti-MLM people, like if someone messaged you and it's like, Kalika, I'm struggling, you're not going to be like, oh, you're so dumb, how dare you get yourself wrapped up into something like this. You'd be like, what's going on, talk to me, right? And like you tell them probably like, take your time, make sure you're doing, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't make them feel like shit. And so I guess that's where I next want to branch off to. So if someone is thinking about leaving their MLM, what would you say is the first thing that maybe they should do for themselves to prepare themselves for the potential scariness of leaving?
Yeah. Well, of course, if you are actually making money, which I know some people that are at the top of some MLMs, they realize all the issues and it's a lot harder for them to leave. Because they actually have a paycheck. Like if your family is actually, if you're one of the few people, if you're that fraction of a percent that is actually making money, and your family is relying on that income, it can be a lot harder to leave. So of course, take care of yourself and take care of your family or whatever. But definitely just disengage, just stop plugging into everything. They always want you on calls. They always want you in communication. Just take a couple days for yourself, honestly, and just get in touch with your own intuition and, where your head's at and what you're really thinking and those kind of things. If you do want to quit, it really only takes an email to customer service. You say, here's my rep number, here's my whatever, cancel everything, and I don't want to rejoin or whatever. And that'll get you out of the system. I would avoid actually talking to your upline about it until you leave, because they do have strategies to try to rope you back in. And the other piece of it is, a lot of people feel a little bit responsible for the people that they've brought in, because they did it with the best intentions. But I do know a lot of people, and it kind of helps deal with the shame, because there is some shame when you leave. Um, Reaching out to some of the people in your downline, and maybe letting them know that you're leaving, maybe your reasons why, kind of gauging where they are specifically, because if they really do trust you, and you see that they're kind of being taken advantage of, there's a good chance they'll leave with you, and you can
Yeah.
really help them get out. Others will want to stay despite, and that's fine too. But I do think that helps, just kind of start to deal with the shame, of
Yeah.
what you were a part of. And I do think, please reach out. Like, please reach out to me or other anti-MLM creators. Nobody's gonna shame you for that.
Mhm.
And the amount of DMs I get, I mean, I probably get, and again, I don't have a huge following and I don't make a ton of content, but I still probably get a message or two a day, honestly, of someone coming across my content and being like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, the one I just got like a day ago was my old boss from Outback Steakhouse 10 years ago, who was in Amway, and I tried to pitch her and she tried to pitch me. And she she just reached out and was like, oh my God, Kalika, thank you so much for what you're doing. And she related her experience. And the crazy thing is how universal it is.
Mm.
Two completely different companies,
Mhm.
but exploitation,
Same
taking advantage
tactic.
of people, preying on the innocent, preying on people who have hopes and dreams. Um, and it's really very healing to talk about it. So I think if you have someone you can talk about it with, it doesn't have to be me or someone like you don't know, but like even a friend or whatever. When my first friend reached out and saw my anti-MLM content, who was on my team, and was like, oh my God, you're so right. Like, he's become one of my best pals, and
Yes.
he's been such a support. Like, there's so many people who are feeling what you're feeling.
Mm.
Remember, about 99% of us ended up
Yes.
in the same boat, So there's a lot of people feeling what you're feeling. And so if you can find a safe place to talk about it.
Yeah. And here's a
Yeah.
thing that I find is like you should have that in all relationships. And if you don't, then you should really think about reevaluating that because if you can't be honest and have just a goddamn question about something that you're investing your money, your time, your soul, your spirit in, like that should be red flag number one across the board. If you're in a relationship and you're like, hey, I'm feeling this a certain way, I want to talk about it, friendships, spouse relationships, family relationships, at work, even like you should be able to have adult conversations. Again, being aware of how you talk to people as well and making sure you're a space to talk about for sure is a big thing, but you should be able to have the questions. And if you can't have the questions, I would challenge to be like, well, why? Why can't I have a conversation about this? Why can't we talk about this? Like if nothing's wrong, then why are people get upset? And that's where I was just kind of confused about this whole model changing because it's like, okay, but they never said you couldn't wear makeup. They never said that you couldn't teach people how to do makeup, couldn't sell makeup. All it was saying is that it's going to be a lot harder for you to make money about with your team making money to avoid the abuse and the predatory behavior, even though they didn't say it. We know it's in the room with us. And I think that that's the right way to go. And if that you truly care about makeup and advocating and helping women sell makeup, nothing changed there, right? So challenge yourself to why are you like, why, what is this bringing up and why? And for myself, if I'm triggered, it usually means that I'm not aligned and I'm not telling myself the honest truth and I'm not being real with myself. So totally get it. It's scary. But like you said, you got to lean into it to change it, right? Like, why did we come to this earth? To make everything is not like sunshine and rainbows. We got to go through our stormy days and to face it. And once you do face it and you show others it's possible, then the ripple effect goes out there and people aren't being abused or they have the understanding that when they get into a model like this and it doesn't work, okay, maybe I'm not a loser. Maybe, I don't have to sit here and self-sabotage and say I'm not good at social media. I must not be pretty enough. I must be not funny enough. I must be, like we already have that enough in the world. Why are we adding to that? Right? So it's like when you guys speak out about this, it's so that when you're in those moments, you can have those tools of understanding when you're self-sabotaging, being like, you're right, you're a loser. Hold up, maybe not in this situation. I'm not the loser. Maybe this model is the loser. You know what I mean? Because you know what it's like to be there, to be gaslit by people. and even after trying to gaslight you afterwards, being like, you're wrong. It's like, my experience is my fucking experience. You don't get to tell me I'm wrong for it because it makes you uncomfortable with yours. No, we're not doing that.
And
No.
it's like, I was talking about those couple months between when I like saw anti-MLM content versus when I got out, or versus when I started speaking out. I'm thankfully past this place now, but a big, like, you're kind of in limbo. Like
Mm,
when you're out and you're just fresh out and you're still reeling,
mm,
you could very easily get sucked back in, because a lot of the time they have explained people that don't like MLMs as like a difference of opinion. They have
mm,
explained to you like, oh, these people just don't understand. They just don't get it. They
mm,
just, they just don't think like that. Some people don't have the entrepreneur mindset,
mm.
like, so they just kind of but like, you're still susceptible to that because they've been like just shoving that down your throat for so long, that when you get out and you're like, okay, I have all these convictions, like, okay, this is a pyramid scheme. They all suck. They all prey on people. They all cause you to lie. Most people make no money. Most people spend more money than they make. These are all the things why I shouldn't be doing this anymore. Like all that conditioning, there's multiple times where I like questioned. I'm like, am I wrong? Maybe I'm wrong about all this, and
Because you're wrong
so
the
it's
first time. You're like, how do I trust
right.
myself again? Yeah.
And it's a process. And yeah, that's
Totally.
a great point that you bring up, because going back to the cult thing is you've learned to not trust yourself. You've learned to put your trust in the company and your leadership. And so trying to regain that locus of control is something that's foreign and like so new to you. And when those leaders that you were told to put all your trust in are like, wow, what happened to you? You lost your faith. You turned into a hater. You just quit. Da da da. You question it. It's
Oh, yeah.
really hard. And so, yeah, that's where I think like really trying to understand your experience, hear other stories. Ex members will give you the most honest truth. They don't even have to be anti-MLM, but somebody
No.
who was in and then left. Why did they leave?
Yeah.
And that stuff really helps, because then you kind of realize like, no, this isn't a difference of opinion. This is indoctrination. This is brainwashing. This whole system is rigged against me. It's not my fault.
Yes, yes. And then too, it's like building that trust again, but you'll come up to situations and you're like, especially if it's in a sales type of thing or a business opportunity, at least you're gonna then maybe question, hold back, ask the right questions, look into things where before this experience, you're like, this sounds great. People aren't gonna want to mislead me, because at the end of the day, I don't think people are like, I'm just gonna fuck people over. Like, I don't think that's what people in MLMs wake up every day and have the Mr. Burns evilness by any means. They honestly feel like they are selling a good product. They are helping people. It's just a little misguided, because they're looking at what they're doing, their intentions, not looking outwards that you're part of a bigger company with a lot of people that actually don't have good intentions, especially up at the top. And you're, like you said before, still a part of that, even though you don't think, even in your bubble, you're just helping people, you're just getting them makeup, you're just getting them products, you're just cultivating your team members and it's feeling good. You are, but you have to understand that that's not just your tiny company that you just decided on your own. You got to scale out and see what other reps are doing, what the company at large is doing. Are they like suing dissenting voices? Are they supporting women that get hurt by their products? Are they trying to silence them? Like, that's what I would want to know, the integrity of the company that I was working for, not necessarily me at a rep level doing what I'm doing and just putting your blinders on because you're happy. I think you got to have a little bit more responsibility again when you're a part of a big corporation like that, because you are. The shittier thing with that is that they don't have control of these reps, or at least within a corporation. If someone's running their mouth and being a bad person, for the most part, they're going to go to those people and be like, hey, what are you doing? Stop, stop, stop. Don't make these claims. Don't do that. Right. Like, where it's like with the MLM type model, they don't have any control of that. And so, and they don't really care to either, I feel like, in a sense. And that's where shit is kind of shitty for them, because they have to pay if they're getting sued too. So it's like, I'll be interested to see in the future how they start coming down on individual reps for making these big ass bold claims that they're, by their own policies, are not supposed to do, right? Like, that is looped into their policies, right? That you're not
it's
supposed to be
it's all
making these
just like
claims.
a deflection of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like they all like, and I think I haven't created a new video in a while, but one of the next ones that I want to create is going over the FTC sent out a letter to the DSA, the Direct Sales Association, which is the self-regulating body of MLMs, and clarifying a few things about how MLMs have been saying that they're not pyramid schemes, what makes them not a pyramid scheme. I'll try to keep this short. In this Amway case back in the 1970, 79, 80, this case allowed MLMs to continue as they are. Amway was able to present their own rule, and this is why it just doesn't make any sense. Amway's like, we're not a pyramid scheme because 70% of our sales come from products. Like, that was never a rule. They created their own rule for themselves and then presented it in court, and then they did a quick judge swap, and they're like, oh, this is all kosher. No, there's so much. The rabbit hole goes so deep. Ponzinomics by Robert Fitzpatrick. Great book, read it. It has all of this in there. But that allowed MLMs to continue to operate and be like, oh, well, we sell products, so we're not a pyramid scheme. That's where this came from. And the FTC sent a letter clarifying that was never a rule. They sent it this past year in March. I'm like, great, shit. 40 years later. But they sent a letter clarifying and restating what the rules are and what people should be saying, what people shouldn't be saying. They clarify that saying that a rep can make any income is deceptive because most people lose money, things like that. So I do want to make a video and going over some of those things, but those rules do exist.
Not being
but
enforced.
The company deflects and they say, oh, these reps are they're doing their own thing. We can't take responsibility. They're independent contractors. But then if you go to conference, they'll be like, we're not allowed to say this, but the reps still say it. So nobody's really taking any accountability for it. And it's just so this is stuff that just makes my blood boil. It's so frustrating because people can just get away with saying literally whatever they want.
Yeah, it's kind of like the pharmaceutical doctor kind of complex where it's doctors are like, well, I don't know about pharmaceuticals. That's why I send you to a pharmacist. But the pharmacists are like, well, I'm not the doctor. I'm not prescribing this. They are. And it's like, okay, but who's responsible here? Someone here is responsible, but you're just both deflecting. And so they've put themselves in this perfect, well, they're independent contractors. I can't possibly be in control of all of them. But at the same time, it's but yeah, you could be, because you could just boot them out of your company if they don't follow the rules that you have set out yourself, because a lot of them have those disclosures where you're not allowed to share what they can share their disclaimer thing as a company, right? And so they should, but as individuals, you're not allowed to be I made this money, or any sort of marketing. You're not supposed to be putting oh, you want to make another $2,000, jump in here. I'm pretty sure throughout the board, you're not allowed to make those claims because it's very individual based, and it's not that's what the income disclosure statements are that are released from the company. Those are from the company that contribute and understand it as a whole, as a business, as a corporation. They put their numbers out with does each individual rep then have their own? No, it kind of blows my mind. Like you said, there's a deflection there that it's you've just put yourself in a neat little bow there, haven't you? So that no one gets to be responsible, and you can just make these money and let your people gaslight others, and no one's responsible until enough people create their own movement.
The claims are what bring people in. So they're never going to stop making the claims. And this just came to me too, but a lot of this stuff is presented at national conference by the company. And so I'm surprised there haven't been more FTC reports directly about company presentations, because even terms like financial freedom, they're not supposed to use. And I'm pretty sure they say that at every company presentation. But you know what? There's the loophole. It's probably a rep saying it and not somebody from the C-suite saying it.
Yeah. Or they put time freedom in there because, time is money. So that's time freedom. And it's okay, you can't say that, but you can, because it's not money freedom. It's not talking about.
Exactly.
But then they're but time is money, and money is energy, and da-da-da. And it's hey, stop it with these fucking tactics. And one quick thing too I want to go over. So since then you had an MLM conference that you were a part of. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And that went really well?
Yeah, it was an awesome experience. It was in May in Washington, D.C. I attended virtually, but they did have some people go in person. I think there was about 400 people, I think, that were registered for the whole thing. And then I think maybe 200 that actually either logged in live or were in the room. And it was so cool. It was put on by the School of New Jersey, like School of Business or something, the College of New Jersey. And it's been going on for a couple of years. They have some like legislators talk. They have some PhDs who've done some research on like the cult aspect or who gets sucked in and single moms and things like that, like whatever they chose to study, but just different research topics. And then they had about 10 of us. And they called us the social media component, which I don't really love that. It's definitely more grassroots activism is what I'm thinking. I mean, it's really not about social media and followers as it is about getting the message out. But these are all people that have independently started creating content on their own, whether that's online or doing some advocacy work, writing into their, legislators, all the things. Roberta Blevins, that I mentioned before, is the one who kind of coordinated it. I think she was the one who kind of started our segment of it. And this time we wanted to talk about specifically the cult aspect. So all 10 of us kind of spoke to different aspects of that, different ways that has played out. And it was all tied up in a beautiful little bow. I hope he posted this to his YouTube channel, but another plug for Chris Shelton. He grew up in Scientology, actually. You would probably love his channel. But he he's like a master's in and did cult studies and like just makes a ton of content about this stuff. And so just basically drawing parallels from how MLMs are to Scientology, because his whole point was that everyone knows Scientology is a cult.
Yes.
But MLMs are not, it's not like widely like accepted.
Yep.
And just drawing some of those parallels. And it was great. If you go to mlmconference.com, cool. That is the website for it. And I think anyone who has allowed their content to be public, their speeches or whatever, is posted on there. So it's a great resource for anybody to go and to just see that anti-MLM isn't just a bunch of haters online. This is a real thing. These are people talking about some of the cons of this industry. Personally, I spoke about just the information control aspect of it from the beginning. Like they try to give you as little information as possible to get you to spend your money, and they try to isolate you as quickly as possible. Then they try to get you to training, and then they try to instill all of their ideas into you and make you basically a deployable member of the group so that you go out there and work for free, work your butt off with the promise of a life-changing income, whatever that means. And that whole thing, but then also kind of the systemic things of why this has been allowed to be legal for so long, who keeps looking the other way. And this is the kind of the more controversial and the more frustrating part of the conference, because the FTC was there and the FTC knows exactly what's happening. They know. Yeah. They know, and they will not say that every single MLM is a pyramid scheme. They will leave that gray area on their website. They will give you all the rules. They'll say, look out for this. They'll on their website, it even says legitimate MLMs, people make little to no money even in legit MLMs. Like that's what it says on their website. But they won't just say that they're all pyramid schemes. It drives me crazy, but that's what allows this industry to continue. So it was really cool hearing about the court cases and who's won and why and who hasn't won and some of the statistics and things like that, and what the FTC is doing. And that's so great that they sent those letters after however many years. But again, they're not shutting the companies down.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it's like once you get deeper into it, I'm sure you could follow the money, and someone on some board is going to be attached to someone high up at the FTC, or a handful of them, or something that's their pockets are getting lined with it. Or, when it comes down to it's like capitalism, right? Like it's making money for the very rich people no matter what. So it's like, unfortunately, I feel like anything that's making the rich people more money, they're very much paying to just look the other way. Or like I said, there's so many people that we see that are in government that go off to big lobby companies or big, all those positions. You're like, would you have had that job if you were in government? Like it's really creepy that way. And I feel like this is, and the same thing with the MLMs, everyone just moves around. So I imagine in their regulatory bodies that maybe it was someone that moved over there that was at the top of one that crumbled and was like, hey, you're really smart, come over here, you know a lot about this, you know, like
No, that's
I
exactly
hate
what
to say
happens.
it, but I feel like that's what
That's
happens.
exactly what happens.
And then
Yeah.
they're running the businesses that they were once making money off of and probably still making even more money off of them, unfortunately.
Right. Exactly. So like I'm pretty sure all of these things have happened where, like I said, they did a quick judge swap for
Yep.
that Amway case where someone who wasn't supposed to be ruling over that decision made the decision. It could have been appealed and it was not appealed. And that was by design. I also know that people that retire from the FTC go on to work for these companies, like you said. Like I think Herbalife is one of them, where they just, if you're going to get guaranteed, if you have a guaranteed position after you leave working for the government and they're going to pay you a buttload of money, like
Why
people
not?
will, I mean, money drives everything basically these days. And then also, like, if your boss leaves and goes and works for an MLM company and then they're at the FTC and they're like, oh, my company's under fire, will you look the other way? What are they going to do? You know, and it's just, it's so frustrating because of that is the reason that people like me feel like we have to go online and talk about this. And we can be targeted for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
It's again, because it's a cult, right? It's sending everybody that's like just like dissenting. It's like, again, stop. I hate it when someone likes, and you see this with influencers all the times, like, oh, I'm getting all this hate. It's like, okay, are you getting actual hate? Or are you getting constructive criticism? Because personally, if I said something stupid on the internet and I was getting criticized and rightfully so, I'd want to take that in and be like, okay, I acknowledge that that was fair criticism. But if you just come on all the time, it's like everything is just haters, hater this, hater that. It's like no personal accountability, no question as to why are people saying that. Like, get curious. Like, instead of being like, I don't want to hear it. Like, I'm sorry, why are you saying this is a pyramid scheme? I need to go listen to why people are saying that. Oh, there are people that have actually been in these situations and got out. It's not just someone on the outside. Like, look at me, it's like, oh, you just hate on it. Listen, I've had 3 different separate experiences in 5 years that left me feeling awful because of this model. So no, I'm not just a hater. I have experience. I would say I'm quote unquote a victim, but for lack of a better word, no, but you know what I'm saying? Like, and so
survivor.
I was, there you go, good word, like a survivor of these mental games. And now I want to talk about it, but I can't talk about it because that makes you uncomfortable because you support it. I'm sorry, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, and like you said, listen to all views and then you get a full rounded story. Like, I have been bamboozled so many times now that I tried so hard not to be, by looking at all sides, because I used to just be like, oh, opposite view, no, I'm just going to look at everything that agrees with me. And then I got hit in the face and my ego got humbled. And I'm like, oh, I don't know everything. I should probably look into this before I stand it a little bit more. And I think that humility helps you not look like an idiot, you know, and understanding that you think you know everything at the time, but just don't have your blinders on. And I feel like when we get involved in these groups, especially where we're feeling alone, especially since social media has made it so easy to feel alienated from the world, you start to feel included. And I think that's across all different movements, right? This is just another different movement that very much can hurt people mentally, spiritually, and financially, because we know that MLMs don't usually make a lot of money. So I think the first thing you should do if you're in one is do your finances. Like, you can't argue numbers, man. Like, I think that's the first thing that to decide. If you look at it and you put how much you spent, how much you actually made, and make that comparison, I think it'll tell you very quickly if this is something positive and you're actually making money. And if you are, okay, like, you know, look at your moralities to what you're supporting. But if you're not, I think that's a pretty quick, immediate, like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore. Just a thought as a first thing.
Yeah.
Look at the finances.
And like, I was running some of these numbers the other day, because, and it's very interesting how you find a variety of numbers. I was trying to find what the revenue for the MLM industry is in the States and then also globally. And the numbers are always different, you know, and it's kind of weird. It's like, why? But it's because there's always this fluctuation. There's such a high turnover rate, lots of different reasons. But I was trying to just kind of see, like, how much is this industry generating? And so on the low end, $200 billion annually. $200 billion annually. And so you'll read, when you try to look up these statistics, you get a lot of articles that are like, network marketing is a great way for a company to have a distribution system. And because people don't know of all of this stuff that's happening underneath, especially a lot of these researchers, like they're looking at just papers and numbers and what has been manufactured and put out there. But the numbers I found were $200 billion annually. And then the highest one was upwards of 3. And then it was saying like projected growth it's supposed to be like another $150 billion in the next 10 years. And I'm like, it's just very interesting. You have to like kind of parse through and be like, okay, who paid for this research? Who decided to say this, those kind of things. But just to do some math, I was just trying to figure it out, because my point is that people don't realize the majority of that 200 billion is not profit. It is not from selling product. It is not revenue, not even profit, but it's not even revenue from selling product. It is the purchases of the people who are reps continually buying, and the sign up fees, because most companies have like a starter pack, and that's like, even if you don't do anything else, if they get you to buy a $500 starter pack, that's pretty much all they need from you, so most of that is coming from that. It's not actual sales. Like if you were making sales and your company had 200 billion in revenue, or an industry had 200 billion in revenue, great. But this is your salespeople buying in mostly. And so I was doing the math, and so I saw it said somewhere that there are 116 million people involved in network marketing worldwide. And like, again, like I said, I've been in sales for long enough to know that a sales force does not need to be that big. Like the numbers already don't make sense, right? Because a normal company would not need, and I know we're talking about a whole industry, but a normal industry would not need that many salespeople for that much revenue. If you like do the math and divide it, that's about $1,700 a person. So that doesn't even make sense, right? Like, why would 116 million people be salespeople to only sell $1,700?
That's not
a year. That's not very much at all.
No.
Versus if they're spending $1,700 a year, which sounds about right if you just break it down to what you're spending
a month,
monthly, $150 a month or whatever.
Yep.
That's where all that money is coming from.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah. So it's like when you're thinking, again, they're using these numbers, but like you said, they're biasly, and let's take some stuff out. What came from the people that have to pay to be a part of this every month? And then I always hear the excuse, well, I use it you don't buy shampoo every month. I'm sorry. That is not correct. And if you're using shampoo incorrectly, don't put a whole cup in your hand at a time. Like that should last you months. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden now your finances and your budget's through the roof because you have to buy this every month. And then if you're not selling that much, then you just have all this excess product. And then people will say, well, we don't have to buy product anymore. It's like, no, but then you have to have a minimum sales requirement. So then you're bothering. I'd rather have product piled up in my fucking garage than having to bother people to sell shit personally.
And that's how they get away with it. It's like it's a 100 PV or CV, whatever volume, commissionable volume requirement. You could sell it or you could buy it. So what do you think most people do if they don't sell it? They just buy it. Most people are not selling that much. Yeah. And so if you take that number and you're like, okay, if each salesperson is generating $1,700, whether that's through their own purchases or selling, and then you subtract what you're actually purchasing, that's pretty much the whole amount. So it's like most people aren't really even selling anything.
No, it's like you're putting money. It's like you're taking your own money and putting it in your savings account, and be like, look how much I just saved. And it's like, okay, I get the girl math, but let's be a little bit, but you put that money there. Like, it's like, and then too, it's like asking or I know that people will like kind of cheat them and like buy through their husband or buy through their child's name or like, and then people start doing crazy stuff that is not like them to hit these ranks, to sell this kind of money, to make it. But that's such a good point. It's like, okay, you made this much money, but remove everything that everyone had to buy that sell it to be a part of it. And that's, in my opinion, what you actually sold to real customers. And that's your revenue. What's your actual profit from that? And that's what I mean. Like, I think right off the bat, if we've pissed you off in this thing, I think what we'll easily say is go do your finances, babe. And if you see that in the positive and it's a crazy amount, please DM me. I would love to see these numbers. I'd love to see positive ones, because I do want to see that. We've had a positive MLM one, but majority is not. And it's scary to leave it for all of the reasons Kalika mentioned at the beginning, right? It's if you are making finances and you've been able to make your money off of that and you're the bread and butter, that's one thing, then you've got your friends in it, you've got your family involved, you've got everyone around you involved now. You've made this your identity. It is so much easier than just walking away from a job, even though that's hard, but you've ingrained this into your identity. It's terrifying. But I think if you're looking at it and it's not bringing you joy, it's negative in your bank account, I think I just want people to be honest with it. You want to sell it, you want to do it, fine, but just be honest. And if you're not making the money, you are selling a fake lifestyle, please stop doing that, because you're hurting other women and you're not giving them informed consent. You're lying to them to sell a lifestyle. And even to, like, I see this all the time, the faceless digital marketing and the MRR. I think we talked about that. There's so many girls that were like, you should do this, we're going to retire our husbands. And I'm like, I'm sorry, if that it was that easy. Like, why do we keep thinking we need to retire our husbands? As much as I would love that, at the same time, like, why is that such a narrative? Like, I'm sorry, we live in Canada. We need 3 people to work in a household right now. Like, that is just such a false thing to sell people. It's just
Yeah,
not real.
I don't know if it's like a power move for like a company that has mostly women. I mean,
Yeah.
personally, like I don't think I would ever want to retire him. He loves what he does.
Yes.
Also,
They've got ADHD. He
we
can't
need
be
our
stuck in
own
the house.
things.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, we
no.
need our own things. And also like right, like we're at like the prime ages of our lives right now. Like even if you don't need 2 incomes, like it's not a bad idea to just
Amen.
stack. Like
Something can
so I
always
don't know.
happen. It can always happen. And like, men are like, not to be this way, but men for the most part, that's their purpose, is to provide, so it's like, okay, I'm gonna then, yeah, of course we want to hang out with our spouses every single day, but we also want purpose too. So I just think it's such a strange sell to, I'm gonna retire my husband so he doesn't work anymore. To do what? Like, most of us have grandparents that are retired that are fucking driving our other grandparents nuts because they're just bored all day, like, so it's like, it's such a great idea, but please stop selling these ideas, especially when no one has done it. It's a great idea, but you just shouldn't be selling people on these false, like, to me, I'm sorry, these are the dream stealers, because these are the people that are saying that this can happen and it's not an attainable dream. And you're actually
Right.
holding them back from being able to get their dream on these false narratives and false stories of just being able to sell some shampoo and only be on your phone a handful of times a day. Like, there's just so many lies that happen within this model and this industry. And that's not just at MLMs, it's kind of just the whole digital social marketing aspect entirely. And I'm kind of over it. I just want people to be honest in their sales. Hey, my mascara looks like this. It's because of this mascara, and I make money off of saying this. Cool.
Yeah.
Then I can be
Yeah.
like, oh, it doesn't work for me. Well, she made money off of it. It's not this miracle mascara. Michaela Naguera. Just kidding.
Yeah,
Lash Gate.
no, totally. But like even in that scenario where somebody has made the income and they do retire their spouse, I'm pretty sure I saw a post from someone who did that in Rodan and Fields. And guess what happens, right? The
Now
company
what?
takes away your MLM model, and then what do you have? Literally nothing. Like that person could, if they want to stay in the industry, jump to another company, bring their team with them. Companies have fast start bonuses. Good chance that they could, if they do it right, get to the top of the next company or whatever. But it's still not sustain. Like you never know when it could be just taken from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, going back to the point of it's a fake dream, I think in that MLM Unmasked, like John Taylor did this huge study about like the stats and everything. I think 1 in 25,000 people actually makes like the passive residual
Mm.
lifestyle income, like enough income to actually support their families, enough profit to actually support their families and live consistently, and it's coming in. I think 1 in 25,000, I think was the number. I forget what company it was. I think was it New Skin, I don't remember, but yeah, that's you can't use that as your sales pitch. That's like winning the lottery.
Yeah. And then you'll be blamed and being told in these, and that's where it goes down to, is these groups and these Facebooks and these lives where it's like, you might not see this on the outside. And if you're not going to go look at the anti-MLM content, you're probably not going to see it. But that's where I started really hating on them, was people that would go and infiltrate group calls and listen to them, talk down to them. And that's where my understanding of the cult like behavior came. It's like, okay, so outside they're making it look like this all beautiful, whatever, but inside, after they've manipulating you, they're starting to break down your psyche and who you are and have you question who you are and gaslight you, and we know brainwashing is just shit on repeat, right? So then you got all these people regurgitating the same stuff. It feels stronger, then you feel trapped and you feel alone. It's very sad and very predatory and gross. So I just really appreciate you guys and people like you. And guys, I always push to go look at it, go listen to it. And if you hate it and you're pissed off, well, whatever. Maybe don't get so upset about people's opinions. But if you're not listening to it, you don't have informed consent, in my opinion. You should be listening it to. Also, Kalika,
Yeah.
where can we find you on YouTube, Instagram? Where do we come and find you to see your content? And then also, if you want to name drop some other anti-MLM content creators on these platforms that helped you as well, that would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. My YouTube is just Kalika Kanitkar, and then my Instagram is kalika.kanitkar. And I think my spelling is right here too, so they'll be able to see it. Yeah, that's where I mostly post, and then Facebook is my full name as well. Those are the three places that I mostly post my anti-MLM content. There are so many amazing creators out there. So even if you don't like one person's style, there's probably someone else's style that you will like. Excellent creator Hannah Alonso. Her channel has blown up
So
recently.
Good. So
And
good.
It's amazing. I'm so happy for her. She makes very respectful content, great analysis, just edits it. It's not a ton of fluff. Mm-mm. She's great all around. I would definitely recommend her. Julie Anderson is another Canadian. Yeah. I love her.
She's so great.
She was the first person when I told you I had to reach out to someone and just word vomit everything, and just she was the person I reached out to. She's been my pal this whole time. She's been a huge supporter of me speaking out and helping me, because she's maybe 6 months ahead of me, kind of getting herself out and doing all those things. So she's very active. She creates so much content.
She does. I'm like, girl, I can't keep up.
No, she creates so much content. She's on YouTube. She's on Instagram, Facebook. I think she has a Substack too. And she presented at the MLM conference too. She straight up called people out by name on the FTC.
I love it.
It's so good. I don't know if you watched it, but
yes,
it's so good.
I just watched her. Yeah, I love her vibes. I'm like, yes,
she's so great. Yeah. Brandy Hadfield is another. She's another Canadian. I have a lot of Canadian anti-MLM friends. She's in school also studying psychotherapy. She's about to become a therapist, and she presented at the conference too. She has very thoughtful content, hilarious reels. Let's see. Always Marco. Also another Canadian. I guess I just love you guys.
I know, right?
Marco, he talks a lot about the finance MLMs, which are so sticky, and focuses a little bit more on the hun bros, which is nice because I feel like we get a lot of coverage on like the women
makeup stuff, and the female side. Yeah. There's definitely a bro side to that, and I definitely appreciate him bringing that side of it as well, because I think it's even almost harder for men to almost with that ego and shame part. I think it's a little bit harder for them. So a lot of them, I think, just are like, nope, done, whatever, and they don't revisit it, just as men tend to do. Us women beat it down with a horse sometimes. So I think that's really great that he's able to bring that other side.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many, and if you just type in anti-MLM, like they'll come up. There's so many. And what I personally did is I just started with the companies that I was interested in. Mm-hmm. And so if you just type in anti-MLM Amore or whatever it is. And the one other thing I'll say about what we were talking about earlier is, you're taught not to look at this content. I did the same thing. I couldn't even listen to someone with an opposing viewpoint. And yeah, that is a problem. You should be able to listen to criticism without getting so angry and defensive that you can't digest it. The reason that happens is because it's emotional manipulation. They have like kind of narrowed the emotions you have allowed yourself to feel, so that you've taught yourself to tune out frustration, disappointment, shame, anger, all these things. But I would say if those are coming up for you, whether it's within your group or when it's watching anti-MLM content, like that's where the work is. Allow yourself to feel it and figure out why it's there, because that'll start to give you some answers.
Yeah. And I will have to say the first person I found on Anti-MLM, she does not as much anymore, was Kiki Chanel. She was the first one.
She's great.
And it was because she was just so like savage. And I was like, girl is not afraid to share her like opinions. Like she's not afraid of the like any sort of mob coming at her, and that's what I really appreciated. But to your point, like there is so many different creators, so many now, and they all have different vibes, or they do different things. Like they'll react to going into calls, or react to stories that they get. Like that's one thing I love that Hannah does, is she opens up for people to tell their stories, and she just shares other people's opinions. And she's very, all of these women for the most part are very fair. They're very like, again, not hating on people, not shaming them. And then some of them are, because sometimes, like you said, you're mad and you want to hear that. You want to be like, yeah, this person took advantage of me and I'm still angry, and they have every right to do that as well. But I think there's so much out there now that it is, kind of getting harder and harder for these companies to not make these changes as we're seeing. And I think that's great. And again, it's because people like you, Alana, Kiki, Cece, all of those people that go out there. There's one thing that I do love. I don't know if you ever watch Swoop. On YouTube, but she's an amazing documentary. She talks about all of the stuff, and she always makes a good point when you're talking about stuff like that. She says it's not drama, it's dangerous. And that is so true, because people will say like, oh, it's haters, you're just talking about drama, just like trying to content farm. And it's like, no, people are getting hurt everyday lives. There's documentaries, there's people, there's a lot more out there now. I don't think it's fair just to say they're haters. It is dangerous, and it has put people at risks of losing their family, their friends, their spouses, their identity. And then it opens them up, like you said, to be more vulnerable to other things. Like, we always see these pipelines where it's like they're doing this, and all of a sudden they're like, whoop, now to an extreme. And it's like, what is that little like a time frame that's making things like go from here to here? There's stuff that we have to check out behavior wise, so that we don't get caught up in those pipelines as well. So keep doing what you're doing, Kalika. Thank you so much again for joining me. It's always so fun. You guys make sure to go follow her. We've dropped it. I will tag her in all of this. I just really appreciate you. And obviously we'll have you back again in some time, because this just never stops. There's just always content when it comes to these kind of things. But again, appreciate you. Thank you so much again, you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me also. I'm always in awe with how boldly and unapologetically you approach some of these difficult conversations. And I think that's so powerful. And, you don't expect everyone to agree with you. You don't expect everyone, and I love that you are facilitating a place for kind of these tough conversations to happen, and where we can kind of break down some of these things that are really hard and polarized to talk about. Thank you so much. I just really appreciate that you supported me on my way out, and on me, in me creating content and all of that. And then of course, anyone, listening, if you have questions about any of this stuff, like Brandy is literally the sweetest person, and you can always reach out. I mean, to her, I'm sure, and to me as well, because we're here. We want to help. We just want to see people,
not hurt,
have informed consent, be able to do, what's best for them, and not be taken advantage of.
Yes, and not feel alone, right? Or not afraid to share, and that that you're going to be judged, because guess what? You're going to be judged no matter what. Just say what you got to say and do what you got to do. And our DMs, like she said, are always open, guys. Like it's not an anti-hate type of thing. It's like, I don't want to see people hurt. I don't want to see people gaslit and lied to and just being taken advantage. And I know that I have spit some rhetorics in the past, and I don't want to be that person. And when I realized, I was like, ooh, I don't like that behavior. I don't want to show up like this. I didn't mean to. That wasn't my intention. But I got sucked up and sucked into it. And now I just want to facilitate the conversations, like you said, that are hard, that are maybe uncomfortable, because that's how we change and grow. And like to just be like, oh, I'm just this person with this thought and that's it. Like that doesn't help anybody. So thank you for recognizing that. And I will always hold the hard conversations in my DMs on the show, always, because being silent sucks, and nothing hurts more than not feeling like you can share how you truly feel. So thank you for recognizing that and being here and being a part of it. And I can't wait to come back again in a couple months and be like, what other tea do we got? But also what did we learn in school that really relates back to all this stuff that is just validating everything that you're doing. So thank you as well, guys. Thank you for listening. And until next time, bye guys. Thank you guys so much for the support. I cannot thank you enough for being here. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please give me a follow at the Be Real Babe podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and Pinterest. You can also find me on Facebook at the Be Real Collective. Until next time, guys, bye!